Domestic workers issue is a reflection of the inequality that exists in society between women and men and the undervaluing of the work of women. If you are talking about the rights of domestic workers, it is also talking about the rights of women in general and the empowerment of women, realization of the equality of women and men. They come from backward classes, they come from Dalit communities, they come from Adivasi communities. And this is a reflection, the lack of rights and opportunities of domestic workers is a reflection of the basic inequality that exists in our societies. Our policymakers, our trade unions, our organizations have not still looked at small towns. We are still looking at only the major cities. And this, I think, has to change. The media needs to change attention to the small towns because that is where this sector is predominantly present.
जब मैं मीटिंग करती हूँ तो वे खुद भी अपनी समस्या बताते हैं कि मेरे मालिक लोग इस तरह से व्यवहार करते हैं मेरे साथ कि मैं क्या बताऊँ। तो एक इंसान होने के नाते मतलब उसको भी लगता है कि मैं भी एक सम्मानजनक मुझे भी व्यवहार किया जाए.
How do we address this sector, which has very specific characteristics? It's an informal sector, but it is not like any other informal sector. You have here the workplace is households, private households, and the employment relationship is feudal or semi-feudal, or employment relationship is also determined by personal relationship. So how do you address these two central concerns? And also, how do you look at domestic work? It is housework. So it's also related to how you look at housework, how you value housework. And then women's work becomes very important. And let us look at what are the rates. How is the skill defined in this occupation? The skills are in across all states. The domestic worker skill is taken as unskilled and non-technical. So they are unskilled workers, they are non-technical workers, and they have the lowest rates. If you look at the minimum wage for across all these states, they have the lowest minimum wage for all the compared to other informal sector workers.
I think the most important thing when we look at it is that we have such a big informal sector, as Amarjit was saying, and they are unprotected. So how do we, and you're talking about low-hanging fruit. I think the national policy is a low-hanging fruit. Why? Because it has been through a consultative process, all states have commented on it. It is ready to be passed. Once it gets passed, the invisible workforce, as you called it, will become visible. They will become workers. They'll have an identity as workers. And that means that they move into the formal sector. 10 million workers moving by a stroke of an adoption of a national policy. They move into the formal sector. That's a low-hanging fruit.
What has been done till date? Minimum wages have been notified in several states: Andhra Pradesh, Bihar, Jharkhand, Karnataka, Kerala, Orissa and Rajasthan. It has also been included in the scheduled employments of 3 more states. Domestic workers have been covered in the Sexual Harassment Act. They are included in the Unorganized Workers Social Security Act of 2008. Welfare boards for domestic workers have been constituted in Kerala, Maharashtra and Tamil Nadu. In 3 states of Chhattisgarh, Jharkhand and Kerala, domestic workers have already started receiving benefits under the Rashtriya Swasthya Bima Yojana, the National Health Insurance Scheme. The Child Labour Prohibition and Regulation Act prohibits employment of child labour in domestic work, as also the conduct rules governing government employees. And placement agencies have been asked to register under Shops and Establishment Act, and several states have done that, including Delhi. However, this is just an anchor. It is not the real legislation for the placement agencies, but right now we don't even know who they are. They are fly-by-night agencies or persons with one mobile phone, and many of these girls which come through these placement agencies, when they start from the village, the name of the girl is different, and by the time she reaches Delhi or Mumbai, the name, the caste, everything is changed. So you really don't know how to track back, and if the girl wants to go back, she cannot. So this regulation of placement agencies is another key issues that we need to discuss about and what could be done. We need them, but we need them as friends, but not as foes.
If you look at the case of domestic workers itself, it has been existing eternally. And it was something with the kingships and the feudal families who thought that they are having helpers to help their families. And then they have to sympathize and give something. From that discourse, of course, we have reached today when we are saying that they are not to be pitied upon. It is not a charity issue. It is an issue of their rights to be recognized as workers. And once they are recognized as workers, then their rights as workers to be included into various labor legislations. And being workers, then they have to be asking for several things as a collective group. That means need of their unions and recognizing that as unions, they will speak for themselves.
मालिक से मैं यही चाहूँगी कि मालिक उसका अधिकार दे और इस तरह का घरेलू कामगारों के ऊपर शोषण ना करे। मैं जिस तरह से मैं आगे बढ़ी हूँ उसी तरह मैं अपने बहनों को भी बढ़ने का अवसर मिले, ताकि इस तरह से हम लोग की जो ट्रैफिकिंग बोलते हैं वो रुके और एक सम्मानजनक जिंदगी जीने का उनको भी मौका मिले।